Okay, so if you're not aware, WildWorks, the company behind Animal Jam, of course, has had a number of games, and one of them was Fer.al, and it unfortunately ultimately failed, leading to the shutdown of the game a couple years ago. And when it came to that shutdown, ever since then, it's kind of been radio silence, especially with the kind of copied game. It became Cinder, which was just full of like blockchain gaming and NFTs and stuff, which also just silently got shut down, seemingly. But today we're going to be taking a look at a blog post from the ex-CEO Clark Stacey on this whole matter. He is addressing everything when it came to Fer.al, from its development cycle all the way to the shutdown, and even after the fact on would they have done the same things or, you know, fixed it up. And I guess to give a extra point of view on why things went the way they did, yeah, let's just hop into it. So pretty much I'm going to pick and choose certain parts I think that are worth mentioning throughout this blog post. It is very long. It's just about a 16-minute read, so condensing that to a video should be easier. This is my second take of doing it, because the first take I yapped for about 20 minutes about meaningless stuff in between. Yeah, the full thing is in the description if you want to read it though. But here, let's start out here, where they had a lot of money issues when it came to Fer.al. I think this was very clear to people that were kind of well invested into the Fer.al and just WildWorks games scene, I guess, in general. He does explain that they took out a lot of loans with WildWorks, and the investors that they were getting funds from unfortunately had their funds frozen when riots in Hong Kong were breaking out, and obviously the virus during 2020, can't say it by name because I'll probably get demonetized, unfortunately, that unfortunately hit as well. So it was kind of all at once for WildWorks, and it made things very hard for them, you know, to say the least anyway. And pairing this on top of the fact that people were not actually spending money on Fer.al, he kind of goes into detail here on screen talking about why this was the case, but people were just very reluctant to, because the game was still in beta. I do know when they first started offering things for money, I think the first character they offered for money, the first thing in the game they offered for money was the kind of season pass, and then the dragon creature. It really did seem like how they were announcing and teasing things up until that point, it did seem like it was going to be a free thing for all players, not to mention the game was still in beta, so it just made sense if that was the case, because you weren't guaranteed to keep your items after closed beta, which I'm pretty sure that's what ended up happening anyway. I don't know if paid items were cleared after closed beta or not, but regardless, WildWorks was accumulating a mountain of debt, to say the least, and they were not finding ways to pay it all during this time for WildWorks and Fer.al. On top of this, they were very understaffed. They were a very small studio. They had to let a number of employees go, I'm pretty sure, in previous years. And with this, bugs multiplied within the game, on top of every other issue that was surrounding the game at the time, including the unfortunate passing of their community manager at the time. It was getting increasingly hard for Fer.al's stability, if there was any at that point, to continue. He also goes on to detail kind of why WildWorks went into the world of NFTs and created Cinder in the first place using Fer.al's assets. I believe he detailed that it was a prototype in the beginning. I guess they just kind of went on board with it because it would save money around that. The kind of whole point of Cinder was to hope WildWorks actually not go bankrupt, which ironically enough ended up being the worst decision they could have made at the time, because the outrage of the WildWorks games community, not even just Fer.al but Animal Jams as well, was outrageous, to the point where he does detail here that he received a number of death threats and whatnot, which I did not think was a good thing, obviously. You know, I was very critical of the game and the company back when this did happen and when I covered it on the channel, but definitely not to this point. And if you did that, you are off your rocker, to say the least. And then he says by the end of 2021, you know, the whole community was kind of split into people wanting to see Fer.al, you know, completed and sustained, and then the others wanting to see WildWorks fail. So they spun Cinder out into its separate company, which I don't think a lot of people actually knew that, especially when the game did shut down. Cinder, to be specific, when that shut down, not a lot of people knew that WildWorks no longer had ownership of it technically. So after that point, they went fully back into Animal Jam and nothing else. And for those wondering, I'm pretty sure Fer.al's IP got spun out with Cinder because they used the same assets. At least that's what I'm assuming, especially because there was no talks of Fer.al whatsoever after this point. He also says here that like it isn't his story to tell for Cinder anyway, because it wasn't under his management anymore. It wasn't under his control. And he talks about, you know, from Fer.al technical depth and the collapse of FTX, which is like a crypto thing. The day-to-day team could say with authority what happened and why, why. I assume it is what he details here, because I imagine he did have a close involvement of Cinder's becoming anyway in the first place, considering it was his decision to pivot for Cinder. As he goes on to say here that he is responsible for these decisions that led Fer.al's development and the mistakes that undermined its success and the decision to shut it down. While a lot of these things were out of his control, essentially with the money side of things, the reception of the game overall at that point was also kind of out of his control, I guess. A lot of people were not getting hooked at Cinder as they anticipated, especially in comparison to like the beta of the game all the way to its actual open beta, I guess. And even when it officially launched, it was just seeming like a downward trajectory, at least from a content creator's point of view. He does say here, even if it was all a few days later between the crackdown and the lockdown, that it all could have ended very differently because they would have had that extra funding on board with them and probably could have done a lot more with it. And he goes on here to say that, you know, the Cinder pivot was not worth it whatsoever. He kind of details how negative it was for not only him personally, but all of the team, the players, and the investors surrounding WildWorks. He does say that it made sense for them business-wise, and look, I can agree with him maybe on that, but the thing is, when you have a WildWorks community, you have a community like the WildWorks community, I should say, it did not make sense for them to do, and I don't know how none of anybody at WildWorks predicted that the community would react in this way when they were putting out Animal Jam journal posts about, you know, the damages of the environment due to, you know, crypto mining and stuff. So I don't know, it just seemed kind of counterintuitive, if that makes sense anyway. But he does say Fer.al did not make sense. He did detail that earlier in the whole thing as well, kind of went on about how much Fer.al was failing and it didn't really make sense for them to continue, and that's why they paused development on it in the first place. And then lastly, to end it off, he does end it here with, as the title says, an apology. Says he owes more than an apology to the players of Fer.al who embraced the game world, saw the magic he saw, and really wanted to play in it. This rumination on the history of the project is in part way to manifest those apologies, and I hope it provides some closure for those who were hurt by our failure to deliver on the vision we offered them. It's too glib by far to say, well, that stuff happens, it's in the game business. It does, and usually not because of any fraudulent intent on the part of the creators, but it happens as a result of decisions made by people in charge, and as one of those people, I acknowledge that the Fer.al players never got the explanations they should have in the moment. They might fairly criticize this now as coming far too late, but it's not a story I felt I could tell while part of the WildWorks board, and better it be told now than not at all. So that's the whole story about it pretty much. I do respect Clark a lot for putting this out, because obviously this was an entire rough situation to say the least for everybody involved, and I think a lot of people surrounding the Fer.al community don't realize that as well. Like, I don't imagine everybody at WildWorks internally agreed with the decision to pivot to Cinder, and I imagine even multiple jobs of multiple employees were risked by doing that as well, and even after the fact, I bet that as well. And I imagine all of this had probably some influence in Nazara acquiring WildWorks and buying them out. And I don't know, it's a whole I don't curse on this channel, but you know, something show, if you know what I mean. He does here at the end that he was you know, it's not a story he felt like he could tell while still part of the WildWorks board. I don't know if that means like he's completely out of WildWorks now. I know when I referred to him as the ex-CEO in a previous video, I think it was about Animal Jam 2, I mentioned that he was no longer the CEO, which not a lot of people knew, surprisingly. Well, not really surprisingly, because it was only on like one blog post on his LinkedIn profile, but I don't know if that means he's like completely out of WildWorks now or not. But you know, Clark, if you ever see this, which I don't know because you don't really like me, but you know, wish you luck, man. Even if everybody in this community kind of has a gripe with you now because of this, you know, I think it's good that he did put this out finally, even if it was a little too late, as he says. I think it's good that he did put it out nonetheless, because it does offer a lot of closure, I think anyway, to a lot of people that did play Fer.al for a while. But yeah, that's pretty much gonna be it. This will probably be the last Fer.al video ever on this channel, or Cinder related video, and finally end the coverage of Fer.al on the whole channel, which, you know, I thought was already over like a year or two ago when the Cinder game shut down. But yeah, I might look into making a kind of whole video timeline of before the game was even announced as the name Fer.al all the way to the kind of ending, which is here, like one big giant project. I'll probably do that in December when when the game kind of has its anniversary. But you guys let me know in the comments if you would be interested in seeing that. But one last time, let's go wrap it up here for this Fer.al video. Make sure to subscribe with notifications on if you guys do want to be notified on future ones, as just like this one. Make sure to leave a like on it if you did enjoy. Do let me know in the comment section below what you guys think of all this. I am interested in seeing what you guys think, and yeah, with that, I'll catch you guys in the next one.